So in this session we will discuss about the physiology of salivary glands. So the salivary glands, they are situated in the mouth. So first let us see what are the main classification of salivary glands. So the salivary glands can be classified into two. That is major salivary glands and minor salivary glands. First let us see what are the major salivary glands. The major salivary glands are parotid gland, then submandibular glands and sublingual glands. Now let us see what are the minor salivary glands. The minor salivary glands are the lingual glands and labial glands, buccal glands and palatate glands. So now let us see how the salivary glands are being classified. The salivary glands are being classified into three, that is serous glands, mucous glands and mixed glands. First let us see what is serous glands. The serous glands are mainly made up of serous cells. So, what is the speciality of these glands? They secrete thin and watery saliva. And the examples of serous glands are parotid glands and lingual glands. Okay, next is the mucous glands. So, mucous glands are mainly made up of mucous cells. So, these glands secrete thick viscous saliva with high mucin content. So the lingual mucous glands and buccal glands and palatate glands belong to this type. Next, third category, that is the mixed glands, are made up of both serous and mucous cells. The submandibular, sublingual and labial glands are the mixed glands. So these are the classification of salivary glands. Now we will go on to the physiological part. But first let us see what are the properties. So the salivary glands secrete saliva. Now let us see what are the properties of saliva. So the first property, that is the volume. So how much saliva is being secreted? So it is 1 to 1.5 liters per day. Okay. Then the reaction in the saliva is slightly acidic. So what do you mean by acidic? When the neutral value is less than 7, when the pH is less than 7, we say that the solution is, or the liquid is, acidic. So the pH of saliva is 6.35 to 6.85. So the saliva is acidic. Next is the specific gravity. The specific gravity of saliva is 1.002 to 1.012. Then tonicity, the hypotonic to plasma. So when you compare with plasma, the tonicity of saliva, it is hypotonic to plasma. Okay, these are the main properties of saliva. Next, let us see what are the composition of saliva. So when you see the composition of saliva, you can see that the water is 99.5% and solids and gases, it is 0.5%. So now water, it is water. So now let us categorize the solids and gases. The solids can be categorized into two, that is the inorganic and organic. So first let us see what are the organic constituents. So the organic constituents can be categorized into two, that is the enzymes, then other organic substance. First let us see the enzymes. First enzyme, that is the amylase. This amylase is also called as ptyalin. So the P is silent here. So ptyalin. And next is maltase, then lingual lipase, then lysozyme, then phosphatase, then carbonic anhydrase and kallikrein. Okay. Then the other inorganic substances are mucin, albumin, then proline-rich proteins, lactoferrin, IgA, blood group antigens, free amino acid, then non-proteins, nitrogenous substances like urea, uric acid, creatinine, xanthine and hypoxanthine. Okay, these are the other organic substances. So the organic substances can be classified into two, that is enzymes and other organic substance. Now let us see about the inorganic substance. The inorganic substances are sodium, calcium, potassium, bicarbonate, bromide, chloride, fluoride and phosphate. Now let us see what are the gases. The gases are oxygen, carbon dioxide and nitrogen. Now, normally the glucose is absent in saliva, but it is found in saliva during diabetic mellitus. So, when a person suffers from diabetic mellitus, in their saliva, the glucose is present. That's why they say that. So, they feel like sweety taste inside their mouth. So, when you suffer from diabetes mellitus, the patients will be complaining that they have a sweety taste inside their mouth. Okay, these are the compositions of saliva. So, is it clear? So, that is saliva can be classified into two, that is water and solid and gases. And the solids again it can be categorized into two, that is organic substances and inorganic substances. Organic substances further classified into enzymes and other organic substances. And this inorganic substance gases are oxygen, carbon dioxide and nitrogen. Okay. Now we have seen about the composition. Now let us see what is the function of saliva. The functions of saliva are preparation of food for swallowing, appreciation of taste, then digestion. Okay, preparation of. So we know the food what we are eating. So it should be mixed with water. So for example, suppose if you grind means anything in the mixie jar, what you will do, especially for that small mixie jar, what you are supposed to do, so you have to mix some water, then only it will be grinded properly. The same process is takes place in our mouth also. So what will this saliva, it will be mixing with this food what we have taken, then it is moistened and it is again dissolved by saliva and it is becoming like a paste. Okay, the second function is that is appreciation of taste. We know taste, it is a chemical sensation we know. So by its solvent action, the saliva dissolves the solid food substances so that the dissolved substances can stimulate the taste buds. Okay, next third function, it is digestive function. So already we have discussed what are the enzymes present in the saliva. The main enzymes are the salivary amylase, so it's otherwise known as ptyalin, then maltase and lingual lipase. So the salivary amylase, what does it do? This salivary amylase, it is mixed with this carbohydrate and it converts it into dextrin and maltose. The next function is maltase. So what this maltase does? The maltase, it converts this maltose into glucose. Okay, next is the lipase, lingual lipase. So the main function of lingual lipase, it acts on the fat, especially the milk fat. And it hydrolyzes triglycerides into fatty acids and diacyl glycerol. Okay. Next function of saliva is cleaning and protective function. So we know the saliva is constantly, it is produced in the mouth. So this saliva, it helps to remove the foreign bodies which is present in the mouth. And the enzymes like lysozyme of saliva, it kills some bacteria such as Staphylococcus, Streptococcus and Brucella. Okay, and the proline-rich proteins it present in the saliva also, it has also have some antimicrobial property. And we have seen that the lactoferrin that is present in the saliva, it also has an antimicrobial property. And immunoglobulin IgA in saliva also has antibacterial and antiviral actions. Okay, that is the function of cleaning and protective function. Now we will know what is the role in speech. So it has some speech role also. So we know if your mouth is dry, we will not be able to speak. So by moistening and lubricating the soft part of the mouth and lips, the saliva helps in speech. Next is the excretion of organic and inorganic and even the viruses, because the mouth has some excretory function also. So the main excretory function is being done by the kidney then means the GI tract and the sweat glands. But to some extent the salivary glands also has some excretory function. It excretes substances like mercury, potassium iodide, lead and thiocyanate. And it is also excretes some viruses, because we know the rabies virus, it is being excreted through the saliva. Okay. Then next is the regulation of body temperature in animals. In human beings, the saliva does not have much function in regulation of body temperature. But in animals, it has some function. We know when the dog is running or the cattle is running, what will happen? Excessive dripping of saliva, it can be seen. So when they are panting, this is the main their body mechanism to control the temperature. And regulation of water balance also. So when the body water content decreases, what the salivary glands, salivary secretion also decreases. Then what happens? Our mouth becomes dry. So this induces thirst and we drink water. In that way, it regulates the water balance. Okay, these are the main functions of saliva. Now let us see how these salivary secretions are being regulated. So it is mainly regulated by the nervous mechanism. That is, autonomic nervous system is involved in the regulation of salivary secretions. So what are the autonomic nervous system? The parasympathetic fibers and the sympathetic fibers. First let us see what are the parasympathetic fibers that is present in the salivary, or how the parasympathetic nerve supply is present. First let us see the parasympathetic nerve supply to submaxillary and sublingual glands. First, so this parasympathetic preganglionic. What is ganglion? That is a group of nerves, nerve endings, nerve bodies. Okay. So preganglionic means that is the nerve fibers that is present before the ganglion. The parasympathetic preganglionic fibers, it's to submandibular and sublingual glands arises from the superior salivary nucleus, which is situated in the pons. Then after taking origin from this nucleus, what does this preganglionic fibers? It run through the nervous intermediates of Wurzburg, and it is a geniculate ganglion and the motor fibers of facial nerve, coda tympani branch of facial nerve and lingual branch of trigeminal nerve, and finally it reaches the submaxillary ganglion. Okay, after reaching the submandibular ganglion, what happens? So it reaches there, then the postganglion arises. So the postganglionic fibers arises from this ganglion and it supply the submaxillary and the sublingual gland. So what are the preganglionic fibers? So that is the nervous intermediate of Wurzburg, then geniculate ganglion, then coda tympani and lingual nerve. These are the preganglionic fibers. Then what is this postganglionic fibers? The postganglionic fibers, it arises from the which ganglion? It is the arises from the submaxillary ganglion and it supplies to the sublingual and submaxillary gland. These are the parasympathetic fibers of what? That is submaxillary and submandibular ganglion. Now let us see what is the parasympathetic fiber nerve supply of parotid glands. Here also the preganglionic fibers and postganglionic fibers are same. First let us see what is the preganglionic fibers. So the preganglionic fibers, this parotid gland, it arises from the inferior salivary nucleus. So what is the means from where this one is arising for the submandibular and sublingual glands? It arises from the superior salivary nucleus. But for the parotid gland, it arises from the inferior salivary nucleolus. And it is situated in the medulla oblongata, but the other one, it is situated in the pons. Okay. Then after arising from this medulla oblongata, where it is going, then the fibers pass through the tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal nerve, then tympanic plexus and lesser means petrosal nerve and the end in optic ganglion. Where it is ending? It is ending in the optic ganglion. Up to there, it has the preganglionic fibers are being completed. Now comes the postganglionic fibers. From the optic, means after arising from the optic ganglion, this first ganglionic fibers supply the parotid gland by passing through the auriculo-temporal branch in mandibular division of trigeminal nerve, and it supplies to the parotid gland. Okay, that is about the nerve innervation. Now let us see what are the functions of parasympathetic fibers. So we had see the means where it is being means how it is innervated. This is how the salivary glands are being innervated. Now let us see the functions. The stimulation causes secretion of saliva with large quantities of water because the parasympathetic fibers activate acina cells and dilate the blood vessels of salivary glands. However, the difference is that the quantity of organic constituents in saliva is less. Here, due to the stimulation of parasympathetic fibers, the salivary gland secretes more water content saliva. Now we will see about the sympathetic fibers. So here also the preganglionic fibers and postganglionic fibers are present. The preganglionic fibers, it arises from the lateral cones of first and second thoracic segments of spinal cord and live through the anterior nerve roots and end in superior cervical ganglion. The ganglion is superior cervical ganglion. So then next the postganglionic fibers are arising. So the postganglionic fibers arises from this ganglion. Which ganglion? That is a superior cervical ganglion, and are distributed to the salivary glands. So here the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. The neurotransmitter for sympathetic fibers is acetylcholine, and neurotransmitter for parasympathetic fibers are the acetylcholine, and the neurotransmitter for sympathetic fibers are noradrenaline. Okay. Now we will see the functions of sympathetic sympathetic fibers. The stimulation of sympathetic fibers causes secretion of saliva, which is thick and rich in organic constituents such as mucus. So it is because these fibers activate the acina cells and cause vasoconstriction. So that is the difference between the function of parasympathetic fibers and sympathetic fibers. The parasympathetic fibers, it causes the dilation of blood vessels of salivary gland, whereas the sympathetic fibers causes the constriction of the blood vessels, and the secretions produced by the sympathetic fibers are thick in mucus, and the secretions produced by the salivary glands are by the salivary glands due to the stimulation of parasympathetic fibers are more water content. So the neurotransmitter in sympathetic fibers are non-adrenaline. Is it clear? The neurotransmitter for parasympathetic fiber is acetylcholine, and the neurotransmitter for sympathetic fibers are noradrenaline. Okay, this is about the nervous action. Now let us see how it is functioning. So the salivary secretion, how is regulated by the nervous mechanism through the reflex action. So it is of two types, that is unconditional reflex and conditional reflex. So when you studied about the psychology, you might have studied what is conditional reflex and what is unconditional reflex and what is conditional reflex. The unconditional reflex, it is the inborn reflex that is present since birth. It does not need any previous experience. So it is present till from our birth itself. This reflex induces a salivary secretion when any substance is placed in the mouth, and it is due to the stimulation of nerve endings in the mucous membrane of the oral cavity. Next one, it is the conditioned reflex. What is conditioned reflex? So it is the one that is acquired by experience, and it needs previous experience. Okay, so like the example is presence of food in the mouth is not necessary to elicit this reflex. The stimuli of this reflex are the sight, smell, hearing, or thought of food. So that itself means causes the stimulation. That reflex is known as the conditioned reflex. Okay. That is about the means physiology of salivary glands. Okay, thank you.